The time is 7:01. We're going to get started here by getting the right spot first. All right, roll call and declaration of quorum, please.
Dr. Matusik?
Here.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes. I'd like to welcome all our visitors this evening. Thank you for coming. To our regulars and to some of our non-regulars. So thank you. Agenda item 2.1, comments regarding agenda items. I do have Jesse Ashlock and Mrs. Duell down here to speak. So whenever we get to the agenda items of which you wish to speak on, please just raise your hand and I'll call on you, okay? All right. I had no one else contact me.
No, sir.
Mr. Sternberger. Agenda item 3.1, or excuse me, agenda item 3, the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull off the consent agenda for further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Dr. Matusik?
Yes.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes.
You need this microphone on you.
I know. Using my voice.
Agenda item 4.1, discussion, possible board action regarding the district calendar for the 22-23 school year.
So in your board packet, I attached 2 calendar drafts, and just want to give you the history of how we did that, just because it's different than what has been done in the past. I don't know that it's better or worse, just different. But we had a calendar committee with the principals, and they each picked a building, or had a building rep volunteer. Came up with a couple ideas. The original ones that we had voted on were fall break, when to have it on the Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Thursday, Friday, or Friday, Monday. And overwhelmingly, it was the Friday, Monday. And then also parent-teacher conferences, have them on a Tuesday, Thursday evening and take Fridays off, or have them Monday, Tuesday evenings and take Friday off, and Monday, Tuesday evening one on that one. So then after we came back with that calendar, then another suggestion was brought up of not having 2-day weeks, so split weeks right there. So ending the semester on Friday, December 16th, and then coming back on a PD day on that Tuesday, then you have 3 days in class as opposed to getting out like on Friday, December 20th. And so that's what the white option is. Now, in your board packet, cut and paste, in the middle dates, the color coding of the blue draft is correct. The dates are not. So what I've handed to you, and to Barb, and to Jack, the dates are correct and reflect everything correctly. And so it was overwhelming with the votes that were collected from each of the sites, and so to the board, I would recommend the blue draft.
Can you email that?
Yes.
And would you speak to commencement when you?
Oh, I'm sorry, commencement. We left that off intentionally just because we are a year and a half basically away from that. And so we were thinking maybe 6 months from when we get to that time, that way. Because every year it's affected a little different. Some classes you have, we try to work around OU and OSUs. Some classes you have a sibling that may have 2 or 3 others at OU that year, or maybe OSU. And so kind of just wait to get to know the class and get a poll from them of, what dates work best. But right now, if nothing were to change, it would probably be that Saturday the 13th. But we'll just wait to be determined. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the change of not having inclement weather days. You want to speak to that?
On the inclement weather days, really no reason to do that anymore. We have like 16 hours over, so we have 2 extra days built in our calendar already. But also we have the ability that if we have to go virtual for any reason, those days can count as a day of school taught. So it's not something that you have to come back. Those inclement weather days were very beneficial to calendars when you had to have 175 days in-person instruction. So if you lost some, you always built in those inclement weather days. It's kind of outdated and no sense to do it anymore.
Any further questions?
Is spring
About the
break
blue draft?
kind of the same week as we did?
And that's a statewide deal. It's supposed to be that third Wednesday of the full week in
Okay.
March. So yeah.
And it's your recommendation on the blue draft?
Blue calendar, that is
Okay.
correct. The one that has all the corrected dates that you have, that you're holding, and that I passed out to media.
I'll move to approve the blue draft of the 2022-23 school calendar.
Second.
Dr. Matusek?
Yes.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Choate?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes. Okay. Agenda item 4.2, discussion of Hennessey Public Schools joining a career tech. And of course, public input is welcome and encouraged this evening. Of course, this has been a topic of discussion for the board, for the past month, 2 months.
But longer.
Or, yeah, longer, you can say that.
20 years.
We did this, when did we do this? Before Dr. Woods came, so 6, 7 years ago. But, of course, we want to consider everything that we can possibly consider for the improvement of every student's educational process here at Hennessey Public Schools. So that's just something that we wanted to consider and visit about, see if that was an option for our school district or not.
So if we were gonna do something for next year, we would need to bring something to a vote by,
It was if I remember right, I don't have that timetable in front of me, but I think we would need to do it at the April meeting. That way, whatever career tech system, whether it's Autry Tech or Chisholm Trail, that way we could take it to their boards and they could pass a resolution. Then it could go to the state board in time. So I believe April is when we would have to have a resolution at our regular meeting.
And then that election.
Would be at the end of June sometime, and I don't remember the exact date on it.
okay,
So and the other option was to really speed it up, or we would have probably needed to have meetings over, and that was just too rushed. I think anybody rushed agrees that's not the way.
and so we need to decide as a board if we wanna put it to a vote, and then if so, which district, or do we put it out there that we want to join a district? If we get the vote, then we choose a district, or we choose a district now, put it out there.
Yeah. Cart before the horse, or I don't know. I think you need to decide what your career tech school is first,
Because of money difference.
because there is a money difference.
Yeah, before you put it to a vote.
And then, once you become firm on that, and that may just through public surveys, public input, public forums, what have you, decide on that, and then move forward with deciding on if a resolution is necessary.
We've also talked about trying to more or less develop our own product, our own solution for, not the entire VOTEC, but maybe some additional.
Well, everybody that I have spoken with on this subject, everybody is in agreement. We need to try to figure out something to try to provide some additional training of some sort for a career readiness path for those kids that are, do not intend to go to college. And whether it's to do something in-house like what you're talking about, I have visited with another district that they would be more than open. They do not belong to a career tech system. They would be more than open to discussing the possibility of starting programs and, maybe us sending them kids and switching and, the logistics to be worked out, but to start the conversation. I need to have a talk with the Hennessey Foundation, which I have not done yet. A portion of that money is set aside each year. I don't know how long that would last. I don't know, how much they're allowed for that. If that would be enough to pay one teacher, two teachers, that'd be enough to. I think the tuition per kid, regardless of where you go, is roughly going to be $18,000 per year. So I don't know if we start our own program, if there's something that a kid needs, that we set a limit at 5 per year, and just decide we're going to commit that way, the programs we can offer. We have the flexibility to do that if it's a local issue, if we want to stay local.
How many kids do we currently have going to?
This year we currently have 10. We've had 86 over the last 4 years, and this year's 10. You're going to have some classes, it was new, so they probably pushed it pretty hard. I don't know why the numbers dropped this year. I don't know if it was just because of change in Mr. Faulkner and myself, not there to push the kids during enrollment. I don't know if it's just the type. I don't know. We recently toured Career Tech Chisholm Trail, And I know Miss Murray is setting it up with Autry to take a group of students up there as well. And once we get that, you know, kind of find out, what do you guys like? You know, do you like the, you know, what do you feel better? Are we gonna have more response with a career tech system that has more options, you know?
So she would be talking to sophomores, taking them to tour, or would it be?
Mr. Faulkner, I was gonna say,
On a couple of things. First of all, the reason for the drop-off, this semester as opposed to in the past, we've generally had about 30 over the, I think the last 3 years up until this year. Then this year we were only able to offer transportation in the morning. And so because of that, anybody that was going to go in the afternoon could no longer go. So that's the reason that the numbers dropped off. We did have a lot more interested, but we weren't able to make it work with their schedules of classes they had to take here at school for them to be able to go in the morning, because what they needed was being offered in the morning. So that's the reason for the drop off. We actually just set up today a tour with Autry. I believe it's on January 25th in the morning, and it's gonna go to, the one at Chisholm Trail was for sophomores. The one at Autry is gonna be sophomores and juniors that are interested in career tech. And I couldn't tell you an exact number, because we haven't polled kids yet to find out, but we're gonna have quite a few wanna go. I believe there's like 48-ish kids in the junior class and 74, I think, in the sophomore class. I bet we'll at least have 60, maybe 70 kids going to that tour, so, if not more.
and I do know from the career tech, or from Chisholm Trail, the sophomores, when she asked them how many would be interested in potentially looking at, you know, fitting one of the classes into your schedule, she said approximately 25 raised their hand. To date, as of today, she's had 2 fill out their applications. So, but the deadline is also,
I'm not sure.
and
I think we
they'll
need
wait
to-
till the deadline.
We need to have
So-
the students tour and then gauge their response, you know, of the 2, how many would be, you know, not just, that'd be a great idea, but no, would be, you know, interested in it, and speaking with the parents as well. You know, there's different survey techniques that we can use to approach the community, but to proceed with this, you know, we're not gonna ask this funding from our community for 9 students. For 29, okay. For 39, 49, 50, you know, yes. But we need to know which students, and I know we're talking about a sample size of a junior and senior class right now, and we're talking about those kids in perpetuity going forward. But we need to have the community response, you know, just so we know how to proceed. Do a survey, a poll of some kind, online poll, so we can get that information out.
Mrs. Duell.
Yes, but I'm mainly here just to ask some questions and maybe have some, you know, thoughts generated. And thank you guys for serving on the board. I know it's not always an easy job. And I do support the career tech. I worked for the career tech as when I was a teacher here in Hennessey. So I certainly encourage any student to get a trade that's not necessarily going on to a higher education, to a college or whatever. So is it my understanding that this will cost $1 million a year? Is that correct?
You want me to answer that? I didn't figure that out. Okay, so, yes, it is, it's based on, it's a permanent millage rate, and, you know, that gets kind of confusing because we pay different percentages or different amounts that are fixed with your county general, county health, county formula, and then the schools. The Chisholm Trail is a little bit cheaper. It would be a permanent millage increase of 12.15, which means it's a 15.7% tax increase right now, okay? So for every $1,000, it's gonna be $150 more per month, that, you know, every $1,000 that you pay in property taxes. Autry, their permanent millage is a little bit higher, so it equates when you add the 15.3 into what we currently have, theirs is a 19.6%, and that's based on our current millage rate. And it's not like a bond issue where if more businesses move in, it lessens everybody else's amount. It's everybody would pay that same amount of millage, because it's a fixed.
Okay, so this will be.
It would be approximately for Chisholm Trail, it would be, based on our district being worth 88 million, it would be right at they would collect 1,044,000 a year, and roughly, Autry Tech, because they're in 3 different counties, the way, and each county is a little different, but roughly we would collect, Autry Tech would collect 1,320,000.
Okay, so all of this money goes to the career tech, but where does the money come from? Is it just the landowners? Is it the entire community? Who pays this $1 million?
Taxpayers, yes, based on who your current taxpayers are, that is.
It would be
Property
taxes
property
in the
taxes.
school district.
It's filled off your real and personal property taxes, that is correct.
So every
Okay.
homeowner,
Utilities, now, they have to pay as well, but yeah, it's every real personal property tax owner.
Okay, so, and you're talking like, if we had 25 students and say 20 of those girls want to go into nursing or cosmetology, because that's a really popular area for girls to want to go into. So if those 20 girls from Hennessey wanted to go, there's going to be room in those classes? Can they guarantee that all of these kids that want to go are going to have a spot at the career tech?
So, based on what Mr. Thomas said with Chisholm Trail, under his leadership, yes, there would be room. I don't know if that means he would hire somebody, I don't know how many vacant spots he has, I just know that that's what he said. New leadership that takes over for him when he does fully retire, I don't know what their stance will be.
Okay.
So, and then Mr. Hughes, when he answered that, Mr. Ashlock, correct, usually they are able to accommodate, they would do the same thing. They would try to hire somebody to, if that put them over the limit, they would try to hire somebody, but also availability of positions might limit them. So technically, no, there's no guarantee either way.
Okay.
Biggest thing to think about is first preference goes to those students that are in a district. If you're out of district, you don't get first preference.
Yeah, so if
it's
we did not join,
Right.
and those 20 girls wanted to go in, and we applied up there, they would take care of their current member students first.
Right, and so, but also this tax isn't like when we built the dome and we passed that bond issue and that tax, goes, it goes away after a while, whenever that's paid for. This $1 million,
It would have to go.
it goes forever.
It's in perpetuity. It would have to come up to the board again by patrons in the community to have another election to remove yourself from that. That would be the process. And there's a lot more to it than that.
Sure.
And I don't know
Yeah.
what that entails, but that's the basic
Yeah.
gist. There would have to be
Yeah.
another vote to withdraw from it.
Yeah, and that's one reservation that I have, is because it's a tax that never goes away, and I think, for me, that's a concern. I love that we've got this dome. I think, man, the way we're able to utilize that and everything, that's just gonna get better. And like I said, I'm all for kids going and earning a trade. I'm just mainly talking about the money issue. And I like the idea that you said you're exploring some other ways to get maybe some other schools to go in together and provide some sort of schooling for our own students, to do something here. $1 million goes a long way, for a small community like this, so
And I asked that
I like
question
that
of
idea.
Mr. Lockwood. He's with the state. We could not vote that and take that $1 million or even a portion of it
Sure,
and
yes,
keep it locally.
yes,
Okay,
right,
okay.
right.
Yeah, we'd have to do it with
Yes,
just general
right.
fund local dollars,
Right.
or, once again, the possibility of working with the Hennessey Foundation.
And I'm on the Education Foundation, and, the students that applied for those scholarships none of them were turned down for their application to attend Career Tech. So I'm not sure what the breakdown is as far as what the percentage of. I should have looked at that before I came, but everyone that filled out an application was able to get those funds to go to Career Tech.
And this August is when that price goes back to that 18,000 a year as opposed to the current 2,000. We're paying about 10% of what career tech.
Chisholm Trail.
Yeah, at Chisholm Trail, we're paying about 10%. That was part of the agreement that Thomas and Dr. Lewis had worked
Okay.
out. So
Yeah.
that-
Okay.
And that does end this year, so that's why, that discussion is.
Right,
before
right.
us. Yes.
Okay.
Can you speak, and I know we've thrown these numbers around, and I think you just touched on it, for an out-of-district student to attend Autry, what is the cost for that? And for Chisholm Trail, did you say it's 18,000?
It's rough and change, 18 to that 20,000.
$9,000 a semester.
It is actually, that's the one that is set by the state, so it can actually change a little bit each year. So
But,
they're told what they charge.
And so, and Autry would basically be the same, if out-of-district cost of
They're gonna be very close.
18
And I
to
can't remember.
$20,000.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. I can't remember which one was a little more expensive than the other, but they're neck and neck.
Sorry, that's a lot more than I've heard. That's a lot more than I've heard, but I mean.
Well,
I
share
work
what
in the
you've
State
heard.
Department. $2,400 with in district, and then you would double that for out of district. But that's, as a parent, what I've heard in that type of situation.
So one of the things we're gonna do is get an FAQ put together. So let me, and newspaper, I'll make sure I get the right number to you for your article, on the out of district. But before we put anything on there, we'll double check with both of them to make sure what the exact cost, out of
I'm not
district
sure they were
cost is.
saying that per student, like if you have 30 kids, what that would be per student for that ad valorem. I'm not sure how that is, but that seems really high to me, personally.
So what you're saying is that your belief, or what you're thinking is that it's 2,400 in district,
4,800
maybe
out.
4,800 out of district.
Yes.
Well, if that's the
Well, there
case,
Per year, per
There-
semester?
There is no cost in district.
if that's the
Mr.
case,
Ashlock.
Well,
There is no cost in
it
district.
is, so if there's an adult student, there is a cost.
That's maybe what you're
That's-
thinking of, because the
That's where
tuition,
that.
Yeah,
that
after year
other
three.
comes in,
yeah.
if
Which
that's
is
the
where-
case, then there's no reason to call for a vote to join a VOTEC.
Except for, it affects more than just the high school students. And I know where we are, and I get the purpose of it. But it affects adult students also. It affects also the businesses within our community. For training purposes, for career purposes, for, each adult's. Career Tech offers business industry services training, from OSHA training to forklift training to, trying to think of all the different training we do. I mean,
What about firefighter one?
we have firefighter one, that's offered at, that's
But-
offered at Autry Tech.
Right, so those that, adults in our community that want to be a part of the volunteer fire department that need to get firefighter one certification, they could, in district, they could do that.
They can do it for a cheaper cost, yes.
For a cheaper cost, not
Yes,
for free.
it's still
We're
a
talking
cost
about the
because they're not in, the actual high school time
Basically,
frame.
yeah,
Now,
and the free, if you want to call it free, for the no cost, is for high school graduates +1, +2 years.
plus 3 years, I
Plus,
believe.
graduation +3.
Yes.
And that's covered with, when you are in district. It covers all the attendance costs.
Yes.
Well, we need to find out how much
You
it
can get
would
the cost for
be.
sure.
You know,
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but that's.
No, and that's the information we're gonna need to have to know whether to proceed forward. If we have an organization like the Educational School Foundation that's willing to pay some, a percentage, if not all, tuition for individual students, then there's a way out for that. Now, if that's not sustainable going forward, then we need to do it as a district.
I had a question for Mr. Faulkner.
he's over there.
Mr. Faulkner, one of the things that I'd be curious to know is, if we had 20 kids that were in fact interested in going, and what programs would they want to go to? Because if they all said, well, we all want to go to mechanics school, well, they both have mechanics. So I would be curious to know the programs.
You're meaning, like, Autry versus Chisholm Trail, would we have certain programs that they couldn't get at Chisholm that they could maybe get at Autry?
Right.
that our students are actually
Or are
interested in
they
doing?
all choosing programs that Chisholm Trail has?
Well, I mean, right now they are because that's all they've got. I mean, I will have a better answer to that question probably the week of the 25th,
I mean,
after we
just
take some
when
kids
you're
there.
talking 5% on property taxes in difference, if everyone's content with the classes that's offered at Chisholm Trail,
Yeah,
well.
the difference
15%,
between, yeah,
26%
yeah,
around there.
yeah.
But, I mean, I would just be curious to know what programs
They were interested in.
Yeah, we need to see what the apples to apples, is, what are the other, curriculum that's offered at one and the other, as well as those things that I know the upper level maths, upper level sciences
Yeah,
are available, is Bio 2, offered at, Autry, but not at Chisholm. So I need to see what is the differences between the two. Our community needs to know that as well. We do know that Autry is closer. So if we're sending buses, for morning and evening and afternoon, there's that consideration.
Well, I think too, you have to look 10 years down the road. I mean, you're looking at the sophomore class now, or maybe the freshman class coming up. But you look at 10 years down the road, if you commit to, say, Chisholm Trail, and there's limited classes, options, the classes on down the road that come up, it may not be enough for them. There may be other options that Autry offers that they prefer to take over Chisholm Trail.
Without a doubt.
Mr. Court?
Is this, well, I'll use the $1 million number just for a number. So we have to pay the $1 million a year regardless of if 10 kids go or 50 kids go?
Yes.
It's not based on the kids.
It's a
That's what
millage.
makes
Flat
it,
rate.
You got it.
that makes it difficult.
Millage, it's how all the taxes.
Mr. Ashlock had his hand up too.
So what I wanted to say first is, I went to Career Tech as a senior, or junior, senior in high school. Went to auto collision, still can tear apart a door, can actually tear up cars and also fix them as well. I have a son that's a junior. He actually wants to run his family's restaurant in Ponca City. He wants to take culinary. That's his thought, that's his idea. There's only one of those two schools that have a culinary program. My daughter wants to do cosmetology. Both schools have that. I think they're both good programs. I think this community needs Career Tech, not only just for the students, and again, I get where we are, I get that whole purpose, but for the community purpose, it serves more than just the 10, 20, 30 students that are in this community. And that $1 million is divided up by however many, residents. So you hear the $1 million, but it is divided up by person. So each person wouldn't pay, obviously, that much. Just really want to keep that in mind. The businesses would definitely benefit. The adults would also benefit. I've heard people actually went to the nursing program at Chisholm Trail. They still pay double for that same program. So it doesn't only affect the students here. That's my biggest thing. But I would like the opportunity for my kids to have the option to go to a school for the programs that they want. Right now, I know they have that option technically, but it does cost more. And it would cost me as more as a parent than it would a taxpayer anyways, if we did it as a community. So that's my basic premise of it, as a parent. Again.
So a 40-year-old that wants to go take welding classes, if they're in district, it's a cheaper rate than
It
if
is a cheaper rate, yes. They still pay. Now, a 20-year-old that graduated, it's still in that range.
Still in that
A
range.
22-year-old, it would be half price of that, according to the out of district price, yes.
We still got lots of time. It's only 7:30. I'm not shutting her down till 9.
Yeah.
Okay, we need each one of you to have 5 minutes.
So basically, what the number he was going up was total for the 2 years. It's on our website, or on their website to show the actual cost of it.
Yeah, because if you got the die, you'd be closer to that.
But I think we need to gather the information from the student body. And I don't want to just limit it to this year's sophomores and juniors. I mean, this year's 8th graders need to.
We can
and
send out a
freshmen.
survey to any grades we want, but as far as actually taking them to tour, we'll just take the sophomores and juniors. But, I mean, that, we can include I can include information in the survey that will be, about.
Can you do this? Now, I'm not saying busing them, but I was aware that we took kids to Chisholm Trail the evening after they had gone up there. There's not one of these students that you're gonna take that is gonna be able to vote on this. We need their parents to go up there. And so when you're doing this, now I'm not saying they need to be riding our buses, but when, on the 25th, I would like that information gotten out to parents to let them know. And if Autry's willing to, take a dozen parents as well on that same tour. I've toured both facilities, but we need input from all those. And especially the parents that would see the benefit and know the benefit, not just the kid that goes, oh yeah, that's really cool, I want to be a diesel mechanic,
Mr. Sternberger, would you feel comfortable having, maybe in February or something, hosting some sort of public Q&A session?
So I wasn't gonna wait till February, I was gonna just next Thursday at 5:30. I mean,
I didn't know if maybe having some information back about, the interest from the kids.
you wanna wait till after then?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I could get some information before, like, by
Okay,
next Thursday.
we'll set a date and
I
time
mean,
after they get
but I
back from
think it'd
there.
be good to have an opportunity for.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know how many in the public, would come, but, I think we ought to give them that opportunity to come and hear, maybe firm up our number, whether it's 18 or.
We'll set up a meeting like that we can have in this room after they go to Autry.
Okay.
So, put this back on the agenda for another discussion for next month? And
Yeah, just be another
see
discussion
what-
item and yeah.
And we might go ahead and say at this point, if you know of anyone who wants to come to our next
We'll
meeting.
continue and
and
I'll get
visit with
with
us.
Jack and we'll get on all about Hennessey and really get the next public forum that we have before our regular meeting.
I mean, I appreciate Mr. Duell coming, but,
Sure,
it'd be nice if there were
more people.
10 or 15 people. but,
Exactly.
And I'm sitting here thinking in my mind, if there were, 10 girls that wanted to go to cosmetology or like the culinary, which is, that's awesome, that your son wants to do that. But how great that would be if we had someone here who could teach that and probably include more students since it's right here because, there's a lot of kids that can't go to career tech because there's a conflict with the courses that they have to have or their athletics or whatever. So, it would be really nice if we could cater, to our own kids, those specific, ones. Because if you polled those kids or did a survey and found out that all of them had, 4 or 5 interests, then that kind of would narrow down your field as to what maybe you ought to be, what ideas you ought to maybe be entertaining and how,
It might be
I just think that would
interesting to know
be.
what a poll of students would be to a career tech center versus options here locally at their school district. If that would really pique the interest of those students, not having to drive because maybe their parents are concerned about that and so forth.
Well, in arts, in athletics, like what's in the morning athletics?
Nothing.
What group does that? They don't have first hour athletics?
Not high school,
Junior
junior high.
Junior high.
Junior high.
Oh, okay. So that's-
What it affects is usually your band and athletics.
Okay,
It affects
okay.
those the
Okay.
most, especially if they're a band student and they're in only English they can take in the afternoon, or if they're in
Yes,
athletics, the
yes.
only English they can take in the morning.
Right.
That's the kids that
Right.
really negatively impacts the most.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I do know Career Tech offers certain classes at those schools, I don't know which ones, whatever.
Right.
Each school can offer English or math, or some offer different ones at those schools when you're there, so if that does conflict, they can take that as well.
Science and maths, I didn't know if Autry does English.
Like I said, I wasn't sure which one.
They do science and maths.
Yeah, Chisholm Trail, I know, at least does not do English.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not even 100% that they do science. I think they just do math. I'm pretty sure at least the kids we have, that's all they do.
Okay, they did used to do some, they've
And
had
they may
sites
still,
before.
I'm just
Yeah.
speaking to the kids.
So, just so I'm not misquoting anything, I will get the correct numbers for an out of district for each one, and I'll have that, and I'll get that to you guys, that way it's printed right, and get that out where everybody sees those numbers. That'll be in the FAQ.
You know, we don't want to mislead.
Yeah, no, exactly, that's the intent of this, is take our time and make sure all questions are fully answered and everybody completely understands what we're trying to do, and make a decision from that. That's right.
Can I throw something in there really quick too, just about limited, if we do something locally, which I don't think is, I mean, I think that's a good option to explore, but you're talking, we're gonna be limited on facilities, funds are gonna be a little more limited if we're not in district than they would be if we were in district at a school where that is what they do. Here, we could offer certain things, like for example, the culinary you mentioned, we have a family and consumer science teacher that teaches a section of culinary class, and it's not that we couldn't maybe do a little more of that, but I think if we get too serious into that, we're gonna be looking at having to build new facilities in order to house those things, and maybe that's more what the community will be interested in, I'm not sure, but that's what my fear is down the road, we're gonna be looking at wanting, a kid wanting to do a program that we don't have the capability to offer, but a Chisholm Trail or an Autry Tech can now and would be able to then. So that's kind of my concern, is eventually I think no matter what we try to do locally, we're not going to be able to give all the kids everything that they would like to do.
I think we would greatly limit the opportunities. You know,
Yeah.
we could come up with one or two
Yeah.
programs, but not the dozen or 24 things, because I know we've had programs at Chisholm Trail where we might have one student in it, but we have 9 in a different one, in the cosmetology, in the healthcare, you know. So we wouldn't want to build a building for one person in welding, but we don't want to limit the opportunities. We need to explore all the opportunities, but we want to be able to service the greater number of Hennessey students. So, information.
Thank you, yep.
And
Thank you. And I'll get that information put out immediately once they get back from Autry Tech and we're able to set up a public forum. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Agenda item 5, new business. You have any new business?
No new business.
All right, get after it. Agenda item 6.
Facilities. So, on facilities, you know, we've got a couple things to finish up on. Once we move, the dugouts, they're about completed, but then we need softball concession and press box. We're looking at softball canopy over the bleachers, and then, you know, eventually a track press box and fencing to go around that, and then a baseball canopy. So we've got some immediate short-term projects to finish. You're looking at probably 100, 150,000 in that. But one I wanted to visit with you guys about tonight is then there's been discussion of, you know, wrestling room, transportation, indoor softball facility, the drainage ditch, you do wrestling add-on, you know, 2 or 3 different things. And so that's where I need to visit with you guys tonight, tell you where we are budget, and then kind of look at the different options we have. If you look at, and this was just sent in, but like a track building, and the one track building that we looked at was on the northeast side of where we currently have some buses, just northeast of the football field there. And that would be remodeling that, basically moving the existing football locker room over, adding on some square feet, and that would be you could put bathrooms in there for service, track meet, and concession. You'd also have locker rooms. This other one could be remodeled into a self-contained wrestling room, for example. And so they didn't go real in depth. They shot real broad, high estimates on that. But roughly there, you're looking at around 1.7 million, you know, just to kind of get started on that. Transportation building, if we displace all the vehicles where they currently are in that northeast building and build the same square footage over there, you're looking at just a little over $1 million. Indoor softball facility, you're looking right around $1 million. Wrestling add-on, if we just added on to the west side of this built gym here, you're looking at a little over $500,000. And so we've got all these things, but we're at a point that really finances come into play. And so where we're at with, you got three ways we can pay for it. Two, one is building fund, where we could just pay for it outright. Well, right now we have 600, we're authorized, estimate needs 675,000. So we collect about 400,000 a year in building fund. So to even start talking about any of the projects, basically, besides just a wrestling add-on, you're gonna look at having to wait a year. And then, or do you wait 2 or 3 years? And, so we gotta figure out how we wanna prioritize what these projects are. So if you wanted to look at doing a lease purchase out of building fund, roughly we've got 675,000. If you figure that you have 100,000, 150,000 to finish the projects we have, you could do something like maybe put a $500,000 down payment down, and then for the next 5 years, maybe pay 300,000 plus interest. That would give you about 100,000 a year for things that come up that you have to spend out of building fund. And so you'd have about $2 million if we wanted to speed up any of these projects. And then the last thing, which obviously I don't really want to talk about right now, especially when you're talking about joining the career tech and, but is a bond issue. So, yes, we have been very fortunate on our bond issue. Right now, we're on schedule to talk with our financial advisor, we're on pace to pay it off about 2.5, 3 years early at our current rate. So, he said you could float a bond issue for about $2 million with no tax increase, but that just means you're paying it on for another 2.5, 3 years. So I definitely don't think that's the time to bring that up at all when we're talking about joining a career tech and looking at millions. So basically it's, do we want to just sit back and cool our jets on all of these projects, wait 6 months, we know we're going to have roughly about $1 million, get the short-term projects built, that puts us around that $1 million range, then we can kind of start prioritizing and seeing what we need, or do we want to look at a lease purchase and try to get something done with any of these, whichever one we prioritize that we want to do. So that's where I'm visiting with you. What questions do you guys have?
Tell me again what the short-term projects are.
I meant to make copies. I will send you guys this, so,
Okay.
right there. Short-term projects are those
Oh,
four.
okay, yeah.
And I meant to make copies.
So the short-term projects are the projects that are already
Right now,
in progress.
wheels are in motion, yeah,
I
that's
think,
right.
well.
And
I don't
we're
speak
getting
for
those
the board,
done.
but
We're committed
My
to
opinion
those.
would be to finish those.
We got those done, and that, we roughly at 675 right now, say it goes a little over and puts us at 500,000 to finish those projects where they're nice, and completed.
And then below those short-term projects were the.
Below those short-term
Larger
projects were those, the long-term or the larger projects that we don't have the immediate funding to do and need to decide, do we want to just slow down on those, wait till our building fund comes up and then explore it, or look at a lease purchase? Is there anything, I guess, that we feel like we have to need or that we have to have right now?
I saw nothing we have to have. Personally.
I will say this, the only thing, because I was asked how I would prioritize it, and it's not by picking any one activity over another, because once again, kids are involved, they're all important. Starting wrestling here and not having the facilities really put them in a bind, and then also our scheduling with elementary PE. And I know it doesn't sound like much after, first hour kids have to roll the wrestling mats out if they want to practice, then they got to roll them back up, and then Mr. Crosswhite's elementary comes over, and then they have some classes of PE in there, and then 6th hour or high school athletics has to roll them out and roll them. They leave them out to the Little League. Little League sometimes forgets, and I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but as a former wrestling coach, it's a big deal. You need a self-contained wrestling room with padded walls that can be cleaned properly daily.
So what else is it used for? I know you just said it, but
Elementary PE.
what is the elementary gymnasium used for?
Well, they have lunch in there.
And that's it?
When they
And Eagle events?
During lunch, those kids use the gym, so the PE kids are now displaced and they have to go over to the old gym, the middle school, this gym here, the metal building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just on the behalf of the board, I know you weren't here whenever we started that wrestling program. But when it was presented to the board, we were reassured by the community members who were involved, as well as the coaches and our superintendent, that no new facilities were needed at that time. So, just from the outside looking in, this is a surprise to me that we need that facility. Now, obviously, we must have a great response to the wrestling program.
Right.
And therefore, if those are things that we need to look for in the future, I'm of course open to that. But as far as like right now, it's
Well, no,
kind of a
nothing,
surprise, yeah.
you're right, nothing on there right now. I mean, I would ask what would I prioritize as the greatest need, and that would be it, just because of the rolling it out.
The difficulty of-
Yeah, just the scheduling.
The track building is for storage of equipment and so forth.
Storage of equipment, locker rooms, concession, and bathrooms.
When they
for
came and
patrons.
looked and gave you an estimated cost of what those projects would come to, they gave you a time frame, what it might take to maybe change, remodel that,
No, I didn't ask.
Remodel
the old bus barn?
And what is the plan for the old bus barn? If we were
So
to
there's been
move
2
on?
or 3 plans. When Chisholm Trail was here, that was the building that he was referring to, that if they went off campus to remodel that into some classrooms for career tech. And then when the discussion of a wrestling room, I've just tried to think, well, if you displaced our locker room over there. So that's all that was.
So the old bus barn would be converted into a wrestling,
Could be, you could look at doing it into moving our football kids over there and basically have the same space moved over here. They'd probably get a little bit more, and then making the current one a self-contained wrestling venue.
the current football.
Field
Current
house.
football. Yeah, current football field house, a self-contained wrestling.
So you'd spend the money on the remodeling of the bus barn, and you wouldn't have to spend the money on adding
Yes.
on to this gym here?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This gym right here.
Yeah.
The middle school gym?
Middle
That's
school.
right.
I've not been informed or privy to indoor softball facility. I know I've had talks with people about a athletic indoor facility that could be used, baseball, softball, football, track and field, practice, things like that. I've never heard the word just specifically softball facility only.
That was mentioned to me the day I got here about, I thought we've talked about the tire store, the Red Barn, moving it over and putting it on the softball side. I thought, didn't we have that discussion?
The what? The Red Barn.
Okay, so we bought the 2 buildings where the tire shop is and then that red building. I thought we at one time had discussed, could that be used to put
Yeah,
in?
we did discuss that.
Okay,
I may not have been here.
And then you also discussed that softball was looking for some place during the winter to do some
right.
batting. stuff
And
inside the gym.
using the middle school gym, that is where the softball currently has their nets. So it has displaced them having wrestling in there as well. Now, we are trying to move them up top in that balcony, but we have to wait until a set of stairs are being built. So we're kind of at the mercy of getting those stairs built.
Is there no way to use the boys baseball?
It's just
or-
sharing because they're all wanting to use it at the same time.
It's all at the
They all
same
have-
time.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
all
all
have the
at the
same
same
athletic hour. They're all out there at the same time.
Well, I
that's the
understand the
only
difficulty.
conflict. Yeah,
I understand.
that's the
that.
only conflict there. The coaches get along,
Sure.
Matthews obviously leads assistant in softball, so they get along great, but it's still just a little, so many kids can run through so many times, yeah.
Okay. Are you looking for further discussion on those items?
Just any questions, I mean, I'm hearing basically, let's make sure we just get those others done and just sit and wait and continue to look for other options possibly, but not
Part
pursue.
of- Yeah, and part of the frustration is building costs are so expensive.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah, on
part of the
those,
frustration.
and that is, those numbers could fluctuate so much, there's nothing, because like on that transportation building, or right above it, that locker room, I think it was 2,000 square feet was new, You know, they said that's $300 a square foot right now for new construction, for school-related new construction. You could go build your house cheaper than
I'm sure.
300, but by the time you go through
What you got?
everything we have to, and architects and construction manager.
So was this an architect firm that was giving you these?
Mhm, yes.
these,
And like I said, very loose numbers, because not anything fine detailed drawings, just, you know, just budgetary numbers for us to think about.
On the old bus barn, were they talking about expanding it some?
That was one of the options. We could take the 6,000 square feet that's there and just remodel what we currently have. Or I asked if you just went to the south, and they said basically you go south, they figured they could get about 2,000 square feet and said $300. So
Because we've also talked about that being a facility for the track, I mean, to service the track,
it,
for restrooms and so forth.
that was what they would include.
So that would take out the track building.
No, that is, when I mentioned that is that part.
It would service football and track.
That is correct. Football in the fall, track in the spring. Same locker room,
Okay.
fall and spring.
But that's what I'm saying.
And they have exterior
another-
bathrooms available.
There's another line on there about a track building or track facility or track, what's that say, David?
What do I have on
Press
there?
box?
The track press box is one of the short-term projects to finish.
No, down on the lower one.
Track building that is the old bus barn. What it
Okay.
says track building is
Oh, okay.
the
That's not a
remodel or
new building
repurposing.
we're talking
No,
about.
no.
Okay,
That is the
okay.
remodel of that northeast building.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that thing needs to be bulldozed and whatever built upon where it currently
Which building?
exists. The old bus barn. To be repurposed for the things, I mean, it's big enough, if it's purposed properly, you know, to house, you know, a hitting barn for softball, for baseball. It could be used in multiple projects. Housing baseball lockers, softball, track and field, cross-country, football. It could be used for a lot of different
And then
things.
if you did that and made that self-contained wrestling room, that's what that would take care of in the winter, but it'd be your visitors' football in the fall. And just backing up, I just got a text from Mr. Hughes at Autry, and he says it's roughly $19,000 a year.
Well, I like the idea of having a wrestling room. I mean, if we have a program.
It just takes money, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be nice to support that sport because we've added it. We've gotten pretty good buy-in, I feel like.
Yeah, no, we've got tons of kids. We actually have a space right there on the west end of the high school, you know, right off the art room and then right north of that. We've got a space in there that we could redo and put, and it would serve for the middle school wrestling hour and the high school wrestling hour. The biggest is the Little League wrestling. It's not big enough to accommodate them because they have 60, 70 kids. Isn't that what Mr. Walker said that night he was
In
here?
the 50s, I
Yeah,
Well, but how often do they meet? That little.
at least 2 days a week,
3 days,
3 days a week,
Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
But they meet at a time. Do they meet at a
after
time?
school.
Like at a time when people aren't using stuff? Do they
Yeah,
have?
they, when they split it up, they got their, like, little kids, they come from like 5 to 6, and then the older kids that aren't, you know, like 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, they come up from 6 to 7.
But it's at a time when other people aren't using facilities. I would assume like it's not a big deal for them to roll their mats out and roll it back up when they're.
Yeah, high school leaves them
That
out.
doesn't happen all the time.
Over here at the middle school gym, high school leave them out, and then Little League comes in that evening, and they're already out for
I mean,
them.
if there was a way that we could have a room for the folks that didn't have to pick their stuff up, because I don't know how much time that costs them every day at practice, but if we've got a room that is already available, I mean, it'd be great if they could have a place. Just my opinion.
Well, like today, they spent like 30 minutes rolling them out and then retaping the mats because they rolled them out and up so
Yeah.
much they had to.
Yeah, I think it would be. But I don't know much about the sport, so
Sure.
I just know, you know, I feel like and I don't know the ins and outs of athletics, but I would assume that most sports have like a home base.
Since it's our first time to see our list, I'd like a little more time to think about it.
Well, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
sure. I'm
That's
just
where you're
saying,
going to give
before I
it to,
start
yeah.
ranking them.
You know, I mean, we've talked about it, a couple times. but,
Right.
I mean, until you see numbers with it and.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the only reason I'm giving it to you tonight. There's obviously no discussion to be made, just kind of, hey, what's your thoughts?
I'm only saying I think that the wrestling should be put towards the top part of the list.
Just because it's the one that it first interferes with scheduling with elementary is.
So if we move wrestling, or get them a home room, if you will, does that give the girls softball a place to go again?
They would drop the nets back in that middle school gym.
So that gives them a place to go.
Now, he would prefer eventually to
Oh,
have,
sure.
you know, obviously.
Sure, that way he's
obviously.
not-
But yes,
understand.
that would bring
But
that back.
that's a Band-Aid to a problem.
That is correct, yeah.
That doesn't require any money other than building.
And that's exactly where we were prior to wrestling being started. Those nets hung there, and that's what he used. Because the nets are in the middle school.
Right. And so, you know, and I,
Or one or two.
oh,
Since they're all
yeah.
Kingfisher, there was one.
Oh,
Let's not go that, let's not go there on public forum.
Softer.
Yeah.
yeah.
Ask them if they want to.
But
Way to go.
I would just be open
I'm
to
just
hearing
thinking
more,
that,
more about what we could do.
You bet.
So-
And
Because Kingfisher's got
I'll-
Is football and wrestling usually
good enough.
kind of tied together as far as a facility, or am I wrong?
I mean, I've seen it both ways.
Because you've got a lot of those young men who are doing football. I know that some do basketball,
Right.
and so,
I've seen it both ways.
Saying how hard it was.
Yeah.
right. I'm just thinking out loud, you know, I didn't know if that could be tied together where you've got your weight room for football, you've got your wrestling room, you've got your football locker rooms, which are
All right
then
there.
all right there.
You need minimum for your wrestling, you're gonna want 2 full mats, so you're looking at about 3,500 square feet of 2 full 42 by 42 mats to have a true practice wrestling room.
And so I'm just thinking about an add-on to the existing football
Oh, yeah.
facility to
Yeah.
kind of keep that tied together.
Oh, that would be the
That was
lockers are
Right.
just already
And
there.
then
Yeah,
if
if you just went east there.
Right, if you went east, and then if you went over to the bus barn and you made that a facility for your track, locker room, and so forth.
Yeah.
That way you don't have wrestling boys and track.
If you added 4,000 square feet to the existing football locker room, he quoted 300, I think you're looking probably more 200 square foot, so 800,000 still.
We need concrete and a building over it to lay some mats on.
And unfortunately, you gotta get the architects involved, and state fire marshal, and
Last year they weren't able to.
public bidding, and it just
So
keeps,
it's really.
just keeps going.
Yeah.
We can get 5 or 6 scheduled for next year.
So,
But anyway, that's just a thought.
well, like I said, I just wanted to get these, I told you, for the last couple of months, I've been working on trying to get numbers, and, you know, we talked about the drainage ditch, I get hit up here on the wrestling every now and then from people, and
I'd really like to
so
just to get
it's just,
these.
if I just wanted to pull everything together, that way we could start seeing what direction you guys want to go. So, and I apologize, I didn't make copies, I'll get you guys an email of that.
I got my own copy now.
But I guess I would be in favor of completing the projects, taking a breath, looking at,
Get the short-term projects finished,
Then-
wait till some money comes in and see, yeah. Because there may be some more, I mean, you know, just like that land that came for sale, nobody had that plan
well, that's
to
not a
buy
problem,
this year.
right.
Same deal if this house comes for sale, I think that would move to the top of trying to acquire that.
Right.
So,
Right, those things happen.
that's right, that's
Those are out
right,
of our control.
that's right. So that's all I have on facilities.
All right.
One resignation, Evan Caden.
Okay. You done?
Yes, sir.
Thank God.
I will never rattle again like that.
Agenda item 7, personnel.
I recommend to the board to hire Jennifer Leo Sandoval and attaches her resume, and she's gonna take the 5th and 6th grade reading position.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Matusi.
Yes.
Mr. Lau.
Aye.
Mr. Choate.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Mr. Tom.
Yes. Agenda item 8, adjourn. Anybody got a motion?
It's not 9 o'clock yet.
Yeah.
Only 1 hour.
You know, you're right. You're right. Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Dr. Matusi.
Yes.
Mr. Lau?
I mean, guys,
Mr. Shook?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
all I've got to go
Mr.
do
Tillman?
is bath time, so I can sit here another hour.
So you would like further discussion on
Yeah.
Run them down to the chute down there and get them done quickly.